Exercising patience while using technology, like Tachi mentioned, can help bring us greater satisfaction and fulfillment. But sometimes, it's not technology that we struggle to tolerate, it's people. Accepting those that are different from us can be difficult, as evident by numerous news headlines and personal experiences. Here to share her story of acceptance, please welcome sophomore Ekta Karkala.
So you know how in every single group project, there's that one person who just wants everything done their way? Well, you're looking at it right now. So you can imagine that when I learned that Justin, the shy, quiet boy at the back of my English classroom, was to be my partner for the biggest project of my 7th grade year, I was more than a little disappointed. I was hoping for someone like my friend Megan, who had the highest grade in the class, or my friend Ellen, who read 3,000-page autobiographies, just for fun. So on the first day of working together, Justin didn't talk to me at all. He didn't even look at me. And this was extremely disappointing. As a student, I wanted to talk to someone who I could have intellectual discussions with, someone who would carry their weight in my group. My teacher, obviously noting my disappointment, pulled me aside and said, "Hey Ekta, I know you're frustrated right now, but I want you to know that Justin has autism spectrum disorder. I have faith in you that you will be able to respect him and accept him, just like you would with any other class member." Now, I could have gone 3 ways from that conversation with my teacher. Number 1, I could have been rude, bitter, and ignorant, and just downright refused to work with him. Number 2, and this is honestly what most people do, I could make working with him a sort of necessary evil, not cruelly involving him in the fear that he wouldn't be able to understand what I was doing. And number 3, I could have been kind and accepting. I could have informed myself and found out what made Justin comfortable. So I went the 3rd way, and to this day, I am so glad that I made that choice. I went home and did my research on why Justin wasn't as talkative or energetic as the other kids in my class. Autism, or autism spectrum disorder, is a developmental disability characterized by struggles in speech, verbal and nonverbal communication, development, as well as unique strengths and differences. We now know that there's not one type of autism, but many, each caused by a unique combination of genetic and environmental influences. And that leads to the term spectrum. Autism is a spectrum disorder, which indicates the wide variations of challenges and strengths possessed by each individual. So I went to class the next day, and because I was informed, I was so inspired, encouraged, and ready to help. It was really hard getting Justin to open up to me, but this time I was not willing to give up. I noticed that he had lots of stickers of trains all over his laptop and his binder, and I simply asked him, "Justin, do you like trains?" And I was shocked by the transformation. The once shy, quiet boy who didn't even look at me was now bursting with enthusiasm, telling me all about his favorite train model and the change of trains over time. Now, this was something I would never understand. It went way over my head. But what I got out of that interaction was the connection. That one spark inspired me and pushed me to dig deeper, to find more of what made Justin click. I knew now that I had to apply his interest in trains to the project we were working on. Our assignment was to write an essay on the character development of a boy from the novel Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. So with a little bit of creativity and help from my teacher, our dialogue went something like this. "Hey Justin, trains have different boxcars within them, right? Similarly, our essay has to have multiple paragraphs. A boxcar always carries something different, like steel or wood. Similarly, each of our paragraphs or boxcars has to carry a different idea. The goal is to make all these boxcars fit and flow as smoothly as your favorite train model." After a few more weeks of working in this comfortable pattern, I saw a lot more of the strengths and weaknesses typically associated with autism. However, my favorite experience when working with Justin was when it was finally time to find data for our novel. Every time I mentioned a fragmented quote or simply an idea I had, Justin was able to give me the chapter number, page number, and line number, as in the physical placement of the line on the page in which that idea could have been found. And I was shocked. There were some incredibly smart and talented people in my class, like Megan, with a high grade, or Ellen, who read all these books, but neither of them would have been able to do this unless they pored over my book for hours and hours. So as I saw, Justin's weaknesses were more apparent just because he wasn't social and interactive, but that did not mean that his strengths weren't equal to, or actually way cooler than that of mine or any of my classmates. After a few more weeks of working in this pattern, editing, drafting, revising, our essay was finally complete, and we turned it in at the end of the year. Grades were entered, and turns out we had gotten an A on the biggest project of the year. Now, while I was surprised, I was just glad that my time, patience, and effort had paid off in such a positive manner, and I was not the only one. A few days later, I received an emotional email from Justin's father, describing how this was the first A he had gotten in his life, and how English was now his favorite class. People with autism have strengths and weaknesses, just like every single one of us. Just because their weaknesses are sometimes more prominent, it does not mean that their strengths aren't equal to, or often way cooler than that of anyone with a neurotypical mind. People with autism are not incapable, as they've been stereotyped to be. Their potential is simply drawn out in different ways. And as I learned, and as I proved, a little bit of time, effort, and patience can really go a long way. A common phrase in the medical community is that autism is not a processing error. It's simply a different operating system. Possibly the best examples I could leave you with are the figures projected behind me right now. What do you think these 5 people have in common? By now, you probably see where I'm going with this. They all showed signs and patterns of severe autism. Now, in the day of Michelangelo or Picasso or Mozart, people didn't have the medicine, research, or technology to understand autism for what it truly was. And it was seen as a terrible disability, rather than a fantastic capability. However, can you imagine a world where the contributions of these incredible people had never been made? Well, the times have changed, and we now have an incredible treasury of knowledge and information on autism and all that it entails. It is now up to us to use that knowledge responsibly and use it to empower our special needs community, rather than putting them into a box of stereotypes of incapable. After my time of working with Justin, I realized that I loved the experience and the way it made me feel. As part of a high school service project, I decided to reach out to organizations around me that did similar work. And I instantly connected with FCSN, which stands for Friends of Children with Special Needs. And to this day, I have spent hundreds of hours of my time, patience, and effort volunteering in hopes to make a change. FCSN is a nonprofit, community-run organization that empowers children with special needs by teaching them life skill classes like cooking and art in order to prepare them for a career and ultimately their future as an independent adult. Now, the teachers are always saying, "We're so glad and lucky to have volunteers like you." But that's not how I see it. I am the one who should be grateful to be in the presence of such incredible minds and watch their development as unique individuals. Despite facing challenges in communication, fitting in and out of school, and bodily function, every single kid has a beautiful smile on their face the moment I walk in. And it is their perseverance and their determination that inspires me to make use of all the opportunities that I've been blessed with. Working with George, a cheerful boy with Down syndrome, has taught me how to communicate with gestures and facial expressions, rather than simply with words. Working with Audrey, a beautiful girl with a passion for art and makeup, has taught me that all minds can have an unlimited imagination. Working with Darren, a math genius, has taught me unconventional methods of problem solving that I never would have learned in even the hardest math class. Finally, working with Kirsty, horse rider, water polo player, and tennis champion, has taught me that anything is possible with just a little bit of willpower. However, if it hadn't been for my choice 4 long years ago to accept that shy, quiet boy sitting at the back of my English classroom, my life would have never been changed in this way, and I certainly wouldn't have experienced such a massive paradigm shift. At first, I did turn to the internet for answers. I did read articles and Google statistics, but that was not what changed my mind. My experience was what changed my mind. That's very similar to our situation today. We have so much knowledge and information, but it is up to us to take the final step and create the experience to empower our special needs community. So the next time that you see that shy, quiet boy at the back of the classroom, see them and accept them for the fellow human being they are, rather than the assumptions that you assign to them. As I learned, you never know how your life may change. Thank you.